What if the problem isn't you? What if you're in the wrong room? My suspicion? You're not broken and you don't need to be fixed. You've outgrown where you are. Let's get more space and freedom to redesign the life you deserve. Welcome to the Reinvention Room. I'm Allison Hare, podcast launch strategist for ambitious leaders, and we are rethinking everything we've been taught. Part pop culture, part real talk, and all smarter ways to live life on your own terms. If everyone has a mic, how do you know who to trust? And this is not just a podcasting problem, it's a culture problem. And today I'm kind of pulling you into the room where it is playing the loudest, and that is the world of podcasts. And what's been happening, I'm very excited to do this solo episode. It's been a little while since I've done one specifically around the world of podcasting and the state of it. But podcasts aren't just entertainment anymore. They have become the most intimate, the most persuasive, and the most dangerous corner of media. It's so consequential now. And so your earbuds aren't really, they are where new ideas are seeded. Like they're planting the seeds and reputations are built and entire movements are born. So this podcasting thing is like at this very critical kind of tipping point. And I want you to be at the forefront of it. And I'm noticing some really fascinating trends and some key podcasting giants, not all of them, are quietly rejecting the celebrity press tour formula. In fact, they are rejecting the usual formulas that got them where they are. And they're completely blowing them up. And so why are they doing this? And why does this shift matter to you? You're going to be so surprised with what you discover and what I'm going to kind of shine the light on a few things for you today that you're going to be able to look around and go, oh, now I see. Now I see what's going on, and you're not going to be able to unsee it, and whether you realize it or not as the listener, it's, it's the difference between wasting your time on recycled sound bites, right? Or discovering ideas that will genuinely change the way you live. That is how pivotal these podcasts have become. So if you're a brand or a leader or a podcaster yourself or someone with expertise to share, it's the difference also as a creator between being forgettable and becoming essential. And I always say that when you play it straight down the middle, you become forgettable. And so it is really important to find what your voice is, because that's what people are craving, that authenticity, right? And you will need to stay. I'm really excited about this through this whole episode because I have got something new coming that takes this whole idea of trust in media to the next level. And I can't wait to make the announcement here. But before we get into it, let me remind you to think of friends, colleagues, peers, random strangers who are searching for a strong ground, right? Like while we're in such chaotic times, send this episode to them. This is going to give you some perspective as to the content you consume. So let's get into it. My husband is, he is like a software genius. And so he's been building this platform where it starts to aggregate podcast trends and podcast data. And so he started sending this to me and I was like, whoa, this is outrageous. I need to talk about this and I need to tell you. And one of the top highlights that we have found is that podcasts are pivoting with contrarian perspectives. And what that means is that the mainstream narratives are kind of going, like all the traditional things of what you understand is kind of becoming this boring, bland, gray, beige, right? People aren't looking for that. And I even notice in my own when I'm consuming my own podcast, I'm bored of almost everything. Like if it's too political, I don't want to listen to it. If it is too like frivolous, I don't want to hear it. I want like somewhere in the middle. And part of that contrarian thinking is like the attention economy, right? And so you're going to start to see that, and I'll kind of peel back the layers of what that's looking like and kind of get into some of the data around that. But really, the truth and authenticity is more important than ever. So I'm going to give you some highlights, and then we'll kind of go into the details of it. Like the truth and the authenticity piece of this, where this is becoming really, really interesting is through. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I noticed that Rich Roll, he was interviewing Dr. Jessica Norick. So if you know who she is, she's a PhD, she is a doctor in nutrition, but she has been kind of debunking all of the Maha movement stuff and kind of talking through what you see on the media is not always the truth. And here's why. So she'll back it up with all kinds of data, whatever. And what was interesting is about in the preamble before this podcast episode, which completely blew the roof off of Rich Roll's podcast. Rich Roll is one of the biggest podcasters in the world. And what he said is that he decided that he was no longer going to be on the press tours, a stop on the press tours for all the celebrity authors or, authors, celebrities, whatever it is. I'm launching a new book, a new movie. And he is saying, no, thank you. I don't want to be on that. Same with Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss has one of the biggest podcasts in the world. And he announced earlier this year that he was going to be doing something different. So both of them are doing something really similar where they have massive platforms, massive amounts of respect. And they're saying, I want to opt out of this. And what Rich Roll had kind of taken it a step further, he said it is more important now to identify the kind of voices and have exceptional discernment for who you put on a podcast. And so there is, kind of the thought around like if I hear it enough, it's kind of like if I go online, like the difference between lose and loose, right? A lot of people will spell the word lose, like lose, take away something, as Loose, right? I'm losing, Loosing. So it's incorrect spelling, right? But you see it so much that you start to go, oh, maybe that is. And you start to spell things wrong, right? That's what we see. It is just the repetition of hearing it over and over again and the definitive voice, right? Like the you can be confident and share some bullshit, right? And people will believe it. People will believe it. So that trust and authenticity and that discernment is so important. And I thought it was such a bold and courageous way of saying, I don't want to be on the celebrity train. I don't want to amplify voices that may be on the fringe, but I also would like to, and Tim Ferriss did this, to amplify voices that you may not know yet because they are in the background doing their medical research. They are not looking necessarily to be the next star, to grow their platform or get to 1 million followers. They're not looking for that. They're looking for actual change. These are data and researchers. And I thought, bravo, Rich Roll, bravo, Tim Ferriss, for helping us because it is difficult to discern who is telling the truth and who is not. So we're going to get a little bit deeper into that. But I thought it was really interesting of like, how do we get our information? Why do we trust the people that we trust? And why do we not trust the people that we don't trust? For instance, I was talking to somebody that I know who it kind of rides in the middle, more right leaning. I am left leaning. And her husband is very Republican, like super, super right. But we have, we can have some dialogue around like, what's true, what's not true, right? Like it's respectful, as it should be, right? And so we were having a conversation about dementia and memory. My father's in a memory care center. And I think her mom is declining in her health as well. And she was saying, have you been taking, I think she called it blue methyl. And I was like, no, what's blue methyl? And she's like, oh, and then she sent me a clip from Joe Rogan that had Mel Gibson on it. Like, two people I profoundly don't trust, don't like, right? Like, no. And so automatically, but I respect this person, right? And so I'm like, well, let me take a look at this. And it really is like trusting the source, right? Nobody is attacking me for my beliefs. I'm not attacking her for her beliefs. But she was saying, and so blue methyl is like dye for threads, for like fabric. It's fabric dye. And you ingest this stuff that's supposed to be a cure. And so she sends me this clip of Mel Gibson, like the biggest anti Semite ever. And like a guy that's been maligned in Hollywood because of his insane behavior. On Joe Rogan, who is questionable at best, right? He has his fans and he has his anti fans, right? Um, and how fascinating is it that I remember hearing this and looking and saying, I don't trust those sources. And the clip was like Mel Gibson, like confidently saying, here's where it is and here's where it's backed up. And I'm like, I believe none of this. And my point in telling you this story, and as I started looking, like, is blue methyl bullshit? It's kind of like ivermectin, the horse tranquilizer, or I think that's whatever, the horse medicine that people were taking around COVID. Is my view right? Who the fuck knows? Honestly, is their view right? Who the fuck knows? And I try and do what I can to kind of believe what I can, and I have some trusted sources, and I try and be discerning. But I also believe that you are discerning if you don't agree with me, that you are probably discerning and have an entirely different news feed. Is it your fault? No. Is it my fault? No. Right? Like, there just is no way. And I think even with the administration being the way that it is, trust is at an all-time low. And our desire to find a terra firma somewhere, a strong ground that we can believe in, is really, really difficult right now when there is so much chaos and division on purpose. The design is to destabilize all of this. So as a civilization, as a society, and podcasts are reflecting that. They are pivoting with contrarian perspectives. I find that I'm looking to not be shocked, but I'm looking to not hear the same recycled crap again, right? I don't want to hear that I'm broken. I don't consume as much self-help anymore or personal development, because I think it's all designed to help me, believe that I am broken and need to be fixed, and they have the perfect course and the perfect thing for me. So it's just kind of a different world that we're in now, where the podcasting has become so consequential. So we'll put a pin on that. We will come back to it. Another trend, and this is not brand new, but video podcasting is truly on the rise. And so a lot of times people will ask me, as a podcast coach and strategist, should I be, can I do audio only? Should I do audio first? Should I do video first? Should I do both? And really, the answer probably is both. People are going to consume it differently, but YouTube is the number one search engine above Google, above ChatGPT. It is still YouTube. And that's how people are getting their information. So if you set it up right and have SEO working and your thumbnails, and it's packaged in a way where people can find you, video podcasts are really, really powerful right now. And I could do a whole episode on that, because it is a little bit of a different beast. But because of the video podcasting, Riverside and a lot of the podcasting technology places are having successful fund rounds because what's happening is that there is a growing demand for innovative podcast production tools, which is great for us as podcasters or creators or content creators. The tools that they have available are so much easier to use. It's easier to go to market, harder to stay relevant unless you stay a little bit on top of it. Meaning they call the AI slop, right? Like AI is kind of doing a lot of the work for us, which really, really helps when it comes to production. It makes it really easy, but it's more and more important to have your authentic voice built out and make sure that use AI as you can, to help you organize information, but do not chat GPT your content. Do not lose your voice because it is the same old crap. That's what it's pulling from, right? We don't want to do that. We want you to have your own voice. And so, what is happening as well? So, like video content is great. There are some incredible tools. Just a note of caution to beware to not let ChatGPT do everything, and make sure that your voice is heard and your true authentic voice. And I think as we're smart people, right? Like we can discern what sounds like recycled crap, and maybe it's polished really well, but it doesn't really sound like you. So let it sound like you. And there is further proof in this that from these trends that niche content is cultivating dedicated podcast communities. So where I see the convergence between the podcasting, the niche content, your specific desires, your quirks, your idiosyncrasies, like bring them out front. Bring them out front. Do not try and have this perfectly polished content because it ends up going over people's heads. And because of the AI thing, people are just, they're smarter, right? They're going to spot the bullshit right away. So I don't want you to give it all up. But the niche content piece of this is really interesting. And I like to talk about, I went to a podcast conference and there was a woman there, and she lived in like Virginia or something, but she was like deeply obsessed with game shows in the UK, game shows in the UK. And she loved it so much that she had a whole podcast on game shows in the UK. She lives in the US, never lived in the United Kingdom. Was this podcast the biggest in the world? Fuck no. Did it have an insanely loyal audience and community built in? Hell yes. So when you think about the things that you love, and even those, like for me, I love cults. Like I can talk about cults forever. I can talk about trad wives. I can talk about what's going on in the culture forever. And you may hear that and be like, I'm not into that. But you could hear that and go, she's my girl, right? And so if you're hearing me going, yeah, I am so obsessed with that too. Like I'm obsessed with understanding the cultural anthropology around belonging and why cults matter and why we are at the height of cults in general. Are you in one? Probably we all are in some way, shape, or form. Is it a church? Is it a fitness group? Is it your company? Is it your family? There are a lot of different cults that don't look like, burning robes in your Nikes and lighting yourself on fire and waiting for end times, right? They come in a lot of different shapes. So that niche content is really interesting. And also the convergence between the loneliness epidemic of what I have seen is that people are moving away from like just broadcasting out, but bringing people in and building communities and having a place for people to feel seen and heard. That is why I always ask people like, what's your weird? What is the thing that you could talk about forever? What is the, maybe you're a Francophile. Maybe you are somebody who deeply cares about collecting Labubus, or you deeply care about collecting stamps, whatever it is. there's so many ways to figure out like what are the things that just light you up, because there are other people out there that are going to find it really endearing and feeling like they have found their people. And in the community piece of this, that part is really important. And what's changing from a podcast perspective is the monetization. There are some shifts that are happening because there is rising listenership. And there are 7 ways to make money in podcasting. I'll go through them really quickly. I did do an episode on this. I can link it in the show notes if you want me to pack it out or build it out for you and you're curious and want to know more of like, can I make money podcasting if you're interested in podcasting at all? The first way is through sponsorships and ads. That's what most people think of. They think of like, oh, AG1 is advertising, or Tide detergent is advertising on my favorite podcast. Sponsorships and ads. The second way is through listener donations. That might be from like Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee, or paid subscriptions, which also can be Patreon. Actually, listener donations are, some people will even set up Buy Me a Coffee or Venmo. Paid subscriptions are more like the Substacks, the Patreons of it. The fourth way is through selling your own products or services. That is how this podcast is monetized, is from that. I am a podcast strategist, so I help personal brands, consultants, coaches, authors, speakers, mission-driven people, executive business leaders. I help them launch strategic podcasts that allow them to reach the people that they need to reach, but also grow their influence and income and their impact. And so selling your own products or services is the fourth way. The fifth way is through affiliate marketing. So let's say if you go onto AllisonHair.com and then in the drop-down menu, there is a button that says Allison's Favorites. And then let's say you click on Riverside, which is the recording platform that I use, and you want to use Riverside, you can get a discount and I will get an affiliate, a tiny portion of whatever you pay with them. So affiliate marketing is very popular, a very passive way to make money, and great if you have a big audience. Number 6 is through live events and speaking gigs, which are becoming more and more prevalent in the podcasting space because of the community building, because people want to be in person. They want to feel something. They want experiences. That is why people are paying $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to go see Taylor Swift live. That's why people are going to see shows at the Sphere. They're going to pay $500 to go see Wizard of Oz in at the Sphere. That's why people are going to theaters and they're going to see their favorite podcasters, because they want to be in the room. They want to be part of this movement. And number 7 is licensing and repurposing. So you will see podcasts that are able to negotiate deals with Netflix or a streaming service, or Alex Cooper is done with SiriusXM, which has proliferated her podcast called Her Daddy. So there are lots of ways to do that. A couple things that are happening that are new in podcast launches. One is political podcasts, and that makes sense, especially with the contrarian beliefs and us in a place where there could not be more of a fevered pitch. Nobody is like chill and neutral, right? Like you're on one side or the other. And so Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear's new podcast has just been launched. So political podcasts are on the rise. True crime and storytelling, because what else calms you down in a state of chaos than figuring out who murdered who? These investigative podcasts or series like 15, Inside the Daniel Marsh Murders. I can say that 10 times fast. Talk about immersive narratives. So people are looking for more immersive narratives, these storytelling, true crime, investigative things. And then celebrity narratives. So Meghan Markle recently came out with confessions of a female founder. Lover or hater, she is a lightning rod, but people are tuning in and they want to understand, what life is like as a celebrity. And so it's kind of interesting to see the rise in the political podcast, true crime storytelling. Again, people want to get lost and they want to figure out, I think on one hand, they want to get lost, But also, I think with the political podcast, they want to get involved. They want to figure out, where is my place in the story? That is why this podcast exists. And that has always been despite the 5 different name changes that this podcast has, it's called Reinvention Room now. It has always been, where is my place in the story of culture? And so it is, how do I change the culture? And the answer is through the lens of personal reinvention and through pop culture, through what we consume today. And so there's been a growth in monetization. Spotify announced over $100 million that has been paid to creators, which shows it shows a strong revenue growth focus. There is a lot more focus on podcasts in general. And then, of course, the AI tools in podcasting is like streamlining everything. But again, it is requiring podcasters to adapt for authenticity. And so we talked about that already. I could not say it enough again. And then also, localized content is gaining traction. And so that is appealing to niche markets and connecting communities. So you see like the recurring themes of this. So I wanted to take a quick pause, and then we're going to close out the show with what's fading from the podcast world, what's ahead, and my big announcement. And so I told you that one of the ways that podcasts make money is through your own products or services. And so if you have been listening and thinking about launching a podcast yourself, or you have one and you're trying to figure out, man, I feel like it's kind of stagnant, or I'm not sure how to really grow it. Maybe you're a founder or an executive or someone with a personal brand that knows, like, wait a minute, I can really serve more people in a bigger way. I just don't know how to reach them. Podcasts are authority building machines. And as we've talked about, like, they're connecting machines. So, what kind of influence do you want to have? What kind of connections do you want to make, but you haven't figured out how? What kind of income could you be making as a result of having a strategically built podcast or content? What's great about the podcasting medium is that it is like kind of like a semi evergreen content that just lives on. And so your podcast builds trust, it builds authority, it builds connection, and it allows people, it's an invitation to work with you if that is how you want to engage, or to connect with you, or to share it, or to grow it. Podcasts serve a lot of different pieces, but how do you reach the exact right people who need you to show up, right? Like, they don't know you exist yet. And so part of it is like, okay, I'm going to build a bridge so people know I'm here and know it's safe to cross, right? So if you're waiting for the perfect time, good news, it's here. The industry is shifting, and those who get in early with the right strategy are going to win. I have seen it. I have helped it. I have supported it. I have supported some of the biggest podcasts in the world and most beloved podcasts in the world have started from my program. So, what about you? If you're interested, go book a free clarity call with me at allisonhair.com/free call. And let's talk through your ideas and see if it makes sense for us to work together. If not, I will point you in the right direction, but do not sleep on this. All right, let's get back to it. So, what is fading? Here is what's interesting. Market saturation is fading. So, if you've ever said, oh, everything's been talked about, everyone's got a podcast, the market is so saturated. Traditional content is becoming less appealing as competition grows. And the new show creation, the number of new podcasts have dropped significantly, which means that indicates like a complex market evolution, which means that if there's less competition out there, the traditional boring stuff is out. You have the opportunity right now to show up authentically as you are and really cultivate your own voice in a time when the market is ready for it, this is the time. And so, like there's so much available for you. And traditional monetization strategies like basic sponsorships are becoming less effective because there are diversified revenue models. So we talked about the revenue models before. So part of it is kind of figuring out, where do you put your energy and time into it? So you may start to hear this in there. So let's talk about signals to watch. What are some predictions that are coming out there? Well, a lot of the podcast media companies are consolidating right now. And so it could lead to integrated media approaches. So, what that may look like is that you may sign on with, let's say, a network, a podcast network that not only does audio, but they are connected somehow with video and TV or local TV or broadcast in a different realm. And so there is kind of an interesting, proliferation of how far this content can go and how far you can repurpose essentially by integrated media approaches. And then the video podcast and the rise of it is really shifting and redefining what listeners expect. And so there are podcasters that have always just done audio. So I'm thinking about Tim Ferriss or even Mel Robbins and the biggest ones, they're all on video now because the video is how it grows and how it expands. I have been putting more effort in my video. In my YouTube channel, it's called the Reinvention Room channel, that I think I may even create another channel just for podcasting and then leave Reinvention Room for, like these insane, amazing thought leaders like Mariel Hemingway and Shannon Watts and Jesse Itzler and Seth Godin and Tia Levings and the people that I've recently been able to have on that are just blowing the roof off of not only my content, but because it's so hitting the zeitgeist, which is what I want, is like, where are we culturally and how do we help us navigate what's going? And that's why I do so much with pop culture and culture at large, because I think it is a reflection of us. How do we think about it differently? How do we navigate this, in a powerful way where we can do it together? And so even for me, I am seeing some trends and some new things that are happening on my YouTube channel as I try and figure it out. Because honestly, the YouTube thing has been hilariously ridiculous for me because I didn't understand it. I didn't put any effort into it. I would put videos up there. They're probably boring as fuck, because they're just me talking. But now all the integrated tools make it easier to create content in a powerful way. And so now I'm like doubling down on what it looks like, and I'll probably do some content on that if you're interested. So yeah. And then audience preferences, like they're showcasing evolving interest, right? Like, so that niche topics again are really, really powerful, whether it's sustainability or green living or whatever it could be. Those niche things are really, really, maybe you love to garden. I don't know. Um, but what it can look like is you can really build a business off of it right now. So that's kind of like what's happening in the podcasting world. But let's talk about Reinvention Room and my big announcement. Well, Reinvention Room, this podcast I started in 2019. It is not a political podcast, but it was born of political frustration. When I started, I had no idea what this podcast was going to be about. Had no idea what I was even good at, other than I knew I could talk because I have a degree in broadcasting, and my dream was always to be on radio. But I always took any opportunity to speak and put it as the fun thing. And then I put making money and like doing traditional corporate stuff as my primary focus to build a business and all of that. And so as I spent 23 plus years in the corporate world in technology sales, but it became increasingly more obvious that the speaking thing really was a powerful force that I could not ignore anymore. And so I started in 2019. I left my corporate world in 2022 to pursue this full time. And the podcasting world has shifted so much. And in 2019, it was called Little Left of Center. And everyone thought it was a political podcast, but it wasn't. My mother always said that I always thought a little left of center. She would talk about people that are like, they appear as normal, but they think a little bit different, right? And so I always identified with that, named it not really thinking, and everyone's like, and so I would have to explain it all the time. So I ended up shifting the name a couple of times, but one of the decisions that I made this year is that I was going to stop doing so much life coaching content. So I had mentioned it before that I've had a lot of people on my show that are incredible, incredible in their communities, and they are experts. And some people um, were really great. And some people, as I started to kind of identify that the personal development and in the self-help world felt so bad to me. Like the more I consumed self-help and personal development, I felt shittier, which is fucked up, right? Like I should be levitating, with all the money that I've spent on retreats and therapists and personal development and courses and masterminds and all kinds of stuff to really invest in like healing. And then it became crystal clear to me, wait a minute, I'm not broken and I don't need to be fixed. And neither are you. And it felt almost like I was being talked down to by all of these self-help gurus. You can add in whoever is coming to your mind right now. The people that you listen to, whether it's Jay Shetty or Mel Robbins or Glennon Doyle or whoever, love them or hate them. And I have opinions about all of them, and most of them I believe are doing more good in the world than not, right? I may have critiques over them just like you would have critiques over anybody. I don't think anybody deserves profit perfect status. And I also think that is a really important distinction as well, that, nobody should be a guru for you. Nobody should have all the answers. You have all the answers. And so I wanted to make sure that this show, that you left feeling empowered, but not with another ailment that you were finally able to label. But you had an opportunity to maybe think about something critically and realize your power has always been intact. You have never been broken. You have never been disempowered. Maybe you felt that way, but you always had it. Where I feel like, if you consume self-help, look at any self-help book, look at the bestseller list, or open up your podcast. I remember opening up my podcast app, and I would see every single title was how to fix or how to stop doing, how to whatever. And I'm like, everything was like pathologizing something I didn't even think about. Like, like this morning, I didn't think I had this problem, but now I do. And I feel so seen. Right. And so, like I didn't realize that anxious attachment, and my parents were probably emotionally immature, but now I do, and like all of these excessive labels where I think they're helpful in doses. I feel like the level of consumption is too much. And so I get pitched constantly of people wanting to be on my podcast. I'm grateful for the platform, but I say no to like 95% of them because most of them are like, and I get it. My name is confusing. And, the Reinvention Room sounds like a self-help thing. And there is a little bit of an element in like personal reinvention. Um, but it can be misleading because people are like, you should have so and so on your podcast because they reinvented themselves and whatever. And I'm like, I want like the world changers, like the people that are setting the shit on fire, but not like conspiratorial, right? Like I want things that are rooted and based in science and proven and facts and data. I don't want like the conspiracy theory aspect of it. So there's a lot less life coaching content. There is a very big discernment on the kind of people that I have on. And there are people that I've had on the show before that, at the time I really felt like they had a powerful voice. And then you find out like they weren't all that they were cracked up to be. And I have empathy for people that, criticize. And even though I was critical of Joe Rogan, or Stephen Bartlett, or, insert any, Oprah Winfrey is like offender number one, right? Of platforming Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil and people that are questionable, right? They may have credentials, but is their logic sound? And they, she put them on the map. And I believe that at the time, you know, she did her best. And who knows, maybe they kind of went off the rails at some point where it no longer felt rooted in reality anymore. And it has so much to do with where do you get your information from, which is kind of leading into my announcement as well. And so this rise here is there is going to be more of a rise in culturally and politically relevant topics here, because that's what I can talk about forever. And I think we are in such a critical moment that if you come here, I want you to know that you can leave here finding your voice, which is why the podcast program is connected to this and why I help people launch podcasts and find their voices. Because if you feel like there is some way to create a community or to help deliver ideas that are important for you to share or connect with or meet the kind of people that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to meet because you had no platform, or you have a book coming out or a speech where you're looking to become better known, there's no better way to position yourself than through a podcast. And so that leads me to my big announcement. And the big announcement is that I'm launching a second podcast, but I am not launching this podcast alone. I have a co-host, and that podcast is going to be called, is that the drum roll? Don't Trust Us. Isn't that the perfect name? Don't Trust Us. And the question it's answering is, if everyone has a mic, how do you know who to trust? And who I've partnered with is a veteran news producer. She was a news producer for CNN, for Fox News, and a veteran news producer that is coming at it from the angle of like a producer of how do you tell a truthful, full story and identifying new media, right? And so if everyone has a podcast, how do you know who to trust? And so we're going to be launching this in October. It is going to be primarily or going to begin on Substack and on YouTube to begin with. And then I believe we're going to put it on out on all of the channels. But we're going to be experimenting and I'm kind of coming at it from reporting from the middle. I mean, somebody that is left leaning and reporting from the middle and identifying like, where do you get your news sources? Is it TikTok? Is it social media? Is it mainstream media? Most people would say no, not even close to any mainstream media. But we're getting our news from our friends, from our groups, from our communities, from YouTube, from whatever platform. You can insert whatever platform you want to it, but we're going to take it all apart and figure out, why do we trust who we trust and why do we not? So stay tuned for that. You can join my Substack. You can search for me on substack.com, Allison Hare, and I'll link it in the show notes as well. So where does podcasting go for me here? Credibility, discernment, genuine storytelling matter more than ever. We will be putting up a Don't Trust Us Instagram account, so hopefully it'll be up and I'll put it in the show notes as well. So be on the lookout for that. But that's why I am doubling down. That's why I'm continuing to bring big ideas and bold voices here on the Reinvention Room, and also launching Don't Trust Us with Jamie Maglietta, where we're going to be breaking down the future of media and who gets to hold the mic. So if you love this episode, share it with a friend who has been thinking about starting a podcast, or one who just wants to understand where the industry is headed or loves podcasts anyway. And it's like, what is going on here? What are the trends? And don't forget to follow both shows so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next week. If you like today's episode, there are several ways to support the show. I produce this show myself, so it helps me continue to make it. First, please rate and review the show on the platform where you listen, and consider sharing this episode with a friend or five. That's how it grows, by sharing these ideas. Second, please sign up for my email, where I send out a short personal note to you every week, and always with a sprinkle of snark and some best finds. You can sign up at AllisonHare.com/email. As always, thanks for listening and hanging out with me in the Reinvention Room.